Hi, everyone. I want to talk a little bit about some of the mythological, religious, and legal aspects of the witch hunts in early modern Europe. There are two characters which appear often in Mediterranean mythoses, which are sort of precursors to the witch. The first is the succubus. Now, the succubus appears throughout Europe as a concept, but it originates in Greece and Rome kind of as an extension of the siren. It's also an extension of the Lilin demon, which is a female demon that attacks men at night. The succubus and the Lilin demon both derive some influence from the Lilith myth. That's why it's a Lilin demon. The Lilith myth exists in Judaism, and it says that during creation, when God had made Adam, he first made a companion, Lilith. Lilith was there before Eve. Lilith was also made out of the dirt, just like Adam was. She was his equal. And at one point, she had the fucking audacity to say, I don't want to always have sex in the missionary position. I want to do some cowboy style. And Adam was like, I'm sorry, I'm always on top. I'm the boss. And this led to a huge dispute. Lilith was thrown out of Eden, and then God makes Eve out of the rib of Adam so that Eve always knows that she's in a subordinate position to Adam. Okay, so that's hella misogynistic. We can now start to see why a lot of organized religion is misogynistic. We're going to set that aside. But there's this concept of Lilith as being the headstrong, disobedient demon woman that's outside, that was thrown out of Eden and still goes around and haunts people. So it's combined with that succubus idea, which again comes from the ancient Greek siren, and it creates this whole class of succubi, Lilin demons that are terrifying women who are disobedient to authority, fly around at night, and scare dudes. So you're going to see that's going to play into some of the conceptions of the witch in the Mediterranean: sexuality, flying, danger to men. In addition to the succubi character or archetype, we also have the Strix. And the Strix is a Greek or Roman character that was sort of the avenue that we get flight associated with witches. Strix are evil owl women that kill babies. So they fly around at night like owls, and they can morph into owls, and they can morph out of being owls. And they are, we anthropologists think they're basically an explanation for sudden infant death syndrome, or babies suffocating because they were left on their stomachs to sleep overnight. Like babies, if you don't watch them at night, it's very easy for young children to die. We needed an explanation for it, right? So in Greece and Rome, they had this concept of the Strix, this owl-like woman that would go and suck the life out of children and basically be a vengeful lady of the night and kill children because that's what she enjoyed doing. And that was the explanation for sudden infant death syndrome. So flight becomes associated with witches in the Western paradigm because of characters like the Strix. Flight is not universal for witches in other cultures. Once you get outside of the Greco-Roman European perspective on witches, flight is not very common at all. But because of this Strix character and because of succubi who also fly, flight got associated with witches in the European Western context. So why brooms? Because if witches don't have wings, then how do they fly? The devil has wings, that's why he can fly. Birds have wings, right? So if witches don't have wings, and like you could look at a woman and be like, I don't see wings on your back, how does she fly? Right? So what ends up happening is that a symbol that's often associated with femininity and women, brooms, like Cinderella is associated with a broom, right, becomes associated with the witch. It's the mode by which she travels. So it gives her the ability to fly, or in some cases she can fly and the broom is just there for, I guess, security. I'm not exactly sure. But the broom becomes a substitute for wings. And then brooms get associated with witchcraft, and the next thing you know, you have Quidditch games. Like, don't make any sense. They're kids at a boarding school. Why would they use brooms to fly? They don't use brooms in their everyday lives. It's not like kids be sweeping stuff all the time. So why are they, like, J.K. Rowling was just like, I don't know, let's put them on brooms. It's going to look funny in a movie. Whatever. Christianity definitely affected witch hunts and the concept of the witch in a variety of different ways, but one of those is the association between witches and the Christian devil. So I want to explain the Christian devil a little bit just for anybody who doesn't have that background, but the Christian devil actually doesn't appear in the Old Testament very much. He is a fallen angel, but he's not particularly special. He's just one of multiple fallen angels, and he doesn't really appear in any of the stories. His big appearance is in the New Testament because he is a foil to Jesus. He's in the Old Testament, he's kind of, at best, a boss of fallen angels, but in the New Testament, he is Jesus's nemesis. And we have the temptation in the Garden of Gethsemane. There's that story. There are several other stories which appear in the Jesus mythos that include the devil. And there are stories that come after the Jesus mythos in the New Testament that include the devil. That view of the devil is very heavily tied to other pagan gods, the gods of other religions. And in many ways, the devil being the arch nemesis of Jesus in the New Testament is really that old pagan ideas are the arch nemesis of this new Christianity. So it's like taking it and making like a metaphorical version of it. So you want to fight old-timey religion with your new-timey Christianity? Let's fight your old-timey devil from the Old Testament with your new-timey dude Jesus. That's where that parallel. So all of a sudden, the devil becomes a much more important character in the New Testament. But by the time you get to writings from the Middle Ages and beyond, the devil becomes the nemesis of God himself. He like gets an upgrade from being the arch nemesis of Jesus to being the arch nemesis of God. And if you think of a lot of our pop culture depictions of the devil, it's that the devil is always trying to thwart what God does. God's trying to get people to do good, and the devil's trying to get them to do bad. That's not what's in the Old Testament. That's not what's in the New Testament. That is a growing and evolving conception of the devil. By the time we get to the period of the witch hunts, the Christian devil is somebody that tempts people to try to fuck over God. And so witches are the perfect avenue of that, right? They are the sirens. They're the middlemen that can help the devil tempt even more people. And this is diabolism, right? Diabolo, the devil. It's just the Latin word for the devil, right? So diabolism is Congress with the devil. And by Congress, I don't mean like our Congress, though our Congress is. What I'm talking about is that can be sexual relations with the devil. In a lot of times, have you danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? There's an association with dancing and festivities and music with the devil out in forests or out in hidden areas at night. Poetry readings or getting lectures from the devil, being taught by the devil, having fake church meetings where the devil acts as a priest. All of this falls under the category of Congress of the devil, and this is all diabolism. And witchcraft becomes associated with diabolism. So both Protestants and Catholics, starting in the late 1500s, become uber, like hyper aware of accusations of heresy, accusations of witchcraft, accusations of evil, accusations of disobedience. And so we see a rise in witch hunts. And witch hunts are directly connected to Christianity in Europe. Fear of the devil, concerns about personal sanctity, concerns about personal holiness and safety and purity, attacks on superstition, paganism, heresy, anything like that. If you weren't following the church, you must be evil. And this notion that society had to create a godly state of goodness. This is actually bigger in Protestantism than Catholicism, but this is where we get the Puritan movement in Britain and eventually the US, is people who are like, we have to live in a pure and perfect state, a godly state of obedience and minimism, and anything that we do has to be in line with this godly state. So the clothes that we wear, the foods that we eat, every aspect of our culture and our life has to be godly and pure. So anyone who disrupts that order is clearly dangerous to the entire group and needs to be sacrificed as a witch. One of the other concepts which appears often in our discussion of witch hunts and witches in Europe is the concept of the Sabbath. And so this is congressing with the devil on a specific night every week, right? If the Sabbath, if Sunday is God's day, then the Sabbath at night, the witch's Sabbath, is the devil's time to have that same religious experience. They practice witchcraft together, they have meetings. So remember, we talked a little bit about the binaries that appear a lot in myths: morning for Jesus, night for the devil. Witchcraft is also heavily associated with the concept of pacts. And that's because pacts were really the only formal way of making agreements during the Middle Ages, and kind of think Game of Thrones sort of thing. So Europeans assumed that witches made pacts, in this case with the devil, and that was a part of that congressing with the devil, diabolism. Witches and witch hunts were focused primarily on obeying laws or disobeying laws. Where were those laws written down? Nowhere really. That's why this is a really subjective process. So religious witch hunts tended to focus on making you admit that you broke religious laws. And so they were really focused on torture, on forcing confessions, on asking for contrition, asking for forgiveness, trying to give penance, and then on punishment, typically connected to hell, fire and drowning, right? Because in the Bible, hell is described as a place with infinite waters where you drown and terrible fires where you burn and suffer. So how do we punish witches? We drown them and we set them on fire. We also, draw and quarter them and like stab them and stuff, but that's pretty rare. Most of the time we set them on fire and drown them because the laws they broke were religious laws, so the punishment that they have to get was religious punishment. However, there were also secular witch hunts, and secular witch hunts were basically giant popularity contests where people were like, this guy's an asshole and he hasn't broken any laws specifically, but like we gotta find some law that he's broken. So like, let's make up some cosmological laws and say he broke them because we just want to find an excuse to like hang this motherfucker, right? Like if you've ever watched Beauty and the Beast and you see Gaston gets the whole mob together and the mob like gets their fire torches out and they're ready, they just want an excuse to hang a dude that they don't like or stab a dude or set a dude on fire. In most cases, since a lot of witches were women, women were not the ones who were normally interacting with laws. Women weren't the ones doing economic transactions. Women weren't the ones who owned property or owned farms or were the ones responsible to the feudal lord for their farm. So you couldn't really get women in trouble using regular laws. If we make up these laws about witchcraft and say that she's breaking those laws, we've found a way that we can punish women using laws, even though we don't have any laws written specifically that can fuck them over at this time. And so, unsurprisingly, small communities and local leadership loved witch hunts because it was a way for local people in power who were getting like bad noise from somebody in their community, like disputing their power and authority, to be like, oh, that person's disputing my power. Ha ha ha, just kidding. That bitch is a witch. Let's like drown her in a lake. When we're talking about religious witch hunts, it's about atoning for sins and all of this connection to religion. When we're talking about local secular witch hunts, we're talking about like popularity contests gone wrong, like Mean Girls gone all the way to the other side. Whew. Okay, guys, that was a big one. Let's wrap it all up. Thank you so much for listening to this background on witches. And please go back and make sure you understand the Levak text. We're going to be talking about it more in section this week. Thanks so much for your time.